Greetings and welcome to Everybody's Business, a podcast from the National Entrepreneur Center. I'm your host, Jerry Ross, and today with me in studio is our hands-on assistant.
Many titles, folks.
You wear many hats, that's for sure.
Everyone here does.
Exactly. We talk about entrepreneurs coming here at the Entrepreneur Center all the time. We were talking about earlier, how do you describe an entrepreneur? What are some of the words that you would use to describe an entrepreneur?
I think flexibility is important. Persistence, grit, those types of characteristics really, a lot of are the type of characteristics we see people walk in here every day.
Sure.
Which I think that really has helped them propel as well.
And, sometimes people think, they have to be creative and need visionaries. And sometimes, a business is created just taking an idea, making something out of something that's already existing. That it's just a small change, but it creates a whole new market. And so the key then is in doing that, staying with it until they're successful. And so having that persistence, we have a saying here that we use that says a unity of purpose with a continuity of effort. And so that's getting everybody together on the same focused goal, but then doing it long enough to be successful. And so many times people do something until it gets hard or until they meet a challenge and then they give up. I think sometimes success as an entrepreneur is just staying around long enough, staying in business long enough to have those phone calls returned that you've been making, or that lead that you've been pursuing forever that comes back.
It'll feel that much better once you are successful.
Right. And so I always tease to say, you've got to be around when that phone call comes and that the caller doesn't get, we're sorry, the number you've reached has been disconnected because you didn't make it long enough. And so with the right planning, with meeting with a coach, connecting with someone that can help you plan your start, that's what it's going to take to keep you in business long enough until you are successful. And so that persistence and that grit of staying with it, even when it gets hard, is many times the key to success. So that, they say when the opportunity appears, you got to show up.
Yeah.
You got to be there. So tell me who our guest today is.
We have Lucas Boyce. He's the assistant to the county administrator for Orange County, Florida.
Yes, but you're going to find out in the interview, Lucas Boyce worked for the President of the United States in the White House.
Wow.
And he has also worked for the N.B.A. team, the Orlando Magic.
That's well-rounded.
Yes, yes, it is.
Just in that sentence.
Exactly. To put those three in the same sentence, quite accomplishment for our guest today. And I think you're going to be interested in hearing his story and his story of persistence and overcoming challenges. So I think you're going to like this one.
I hope so. We'll see.
We'll be right back.
The National Entrepreneur Center in Orlando, Florida has been around since 2003 and today is home to 14 business support organizations who have a single mission: to help you grow your business. Through free business coaching, low-cost training, and valuable business connections, these 14 business support organizations assist thousands of entrepreneurs each year in starting, growing, and scaling their businesses. So why not visit the website at nationalec.org today, or give us a call at 407-420-4848 to discover how you might take your business to the next level. And by the way, the National Entrepreneur Center is funded entirely through local sponsors, which include Florida Blue, Fifth Third Bank, the Orlando Magic, and Seacoast Bank, just to name a few. So let's get connected today and get growing. Check out our website at nationalec.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Everybody's Business, a podcast from the National Entrepreneur Center located in Orlando, Florida. My name is Jerry Ross. I'm your host and president of the National Entrepreneur Center, which is dedicated to help entrepreneurs grow, build your business, grow your community. Today, we have a special guest. His name is Lucas Boyce. He's the assistant to the county administrator for Orange County, Florida. He's also a published author and speaker who currently serves on the advisory board of the National Coalition of Adoption Institute, and he's an advisor to the Financial Aid Network and the Global Institute of College Planning. Lucas has served as the Director of Business Development and Legislative Affairs for the Orlando Magic, where he led the company's efforts in government affairs as well as the liaison to elected officials at the local, state, and federal level. He also led the Orlando Magic's diversity and inclusion initiatives, cause marketing, and community engagement. Prior to his role at the Orlando Magic, Lucas served in the White House at Washington, D.C., in the Office of Political Affairs, Office of Public Liaison, and the Office of the Vice President. He is the author of the book, Living Proof. Right here, I've got my copy that I've read. Life Lessons for Success, Leadership, and Character. He travels regularly to speak on topics that include faith, leadership, teamwork, and overcoming challenges. He's been awarded the Nelson Mandela Global Leadership Award by the National Black Caucus of local elected officials, the Outstanding Recent Alumnus from the Central Missouri University, and he's been recognized by the Orlando Business Journal as a 40 under 40 Man of the Year. It's my pleasure to welcome my friend, Lucas Boyce. Thanks for joining us today, Lucas.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jerry, for inviting me. I really am grateful.
Let's start out from the book. Let's share your life journey that you shared in the book with our audience.
Sure. So, two moms, one birth mom and one adopted mom. And we'll start with them. My wonderful birth mother, doing everything right, had everything going for her in teenage years, got caught up with the wrong crowd, got into substance abuse and alcohol abuse. And again, this is one of those things where I asked to be transparent and honest with you. I got my mom's DNA, and so some of the same things that tried to take her out have tried to take me out. And it's been we struggled, ups
Sure.
and downs, good days and bad days. And I am blessed to have my mom's DNA, but that's also something to be mindful of, is that the best and all of her are in me. And so I used to, when I share my story, and I would talk about my mom in a different terminology, and like, she did this, and then I had a significant relationship in my life just fall apart, and then I fell apart, and coped with all of the wrong things. And it was at that point a realization came to me that it's probably what your birth mother was going through in her 18, 19-year-old, when she's on the street, she's just trying to survive. We don't know who my dad is, right? And my mom doesn't know who he is either, but became pregnant with me and was born premature because I was exposed to fetal alcohol syndrome and drugs in conception and throughout the pregnancy. And so I came out a little undercooked,
Yeah.
premature, 6 weeks, about 4 pounds, and was in the NICU for 10 days. And
So you started out with challenges to overcome. So this is something that
we were literally born into fire. I born into the fire and was in the NICU for about 10 days, trying to make sure, the things that weren't fully developed were a little bit, and then went straight to, because of my mom's situation, she could not take care of me. I got sent straight to foster care. And my adoptive mom now, Dorothy, is a savior, and went straight to her home. And when I was a little boy, and over the course of about 15 years, she had over 40 foster care kids like me.
no kidding.
Came through her home. And here's where she was so transformative. Before MLK or diversity and equity and inclusion were buzzwords, right? Or the beloved community, or as Mayor Dimmings liked to talk about, the EPCOT, this experimental prototype community of tomorrow that we're all on this joint pursuit to build. That's what my mom talked to about our family. And so at one point, she was a single mom with 11 kids. She had 4 of her own, adopted 6 of us, and my stepdad, Larry, has 3. And so we're a big family of 13. But at one point, my adopted mom, Dorothy Lee Boyce, was a single mom with 11 kids, just trying to make it and get us all through. We came to her with disabilities, known and unknown, me included. My sister Leslie's 46, and she has the mind of a 3-year-old, and she's the most precious, pure thing in the world. She adopted 16-year-olds that have been passed through the foster care system, and nobody wants a teenager to want a cute, cuddly baby. It didn't matter to her. She was welcoming and inclusive of everyone, no matter whether we were her blood or not. She treated us all the same. And that's where I learned my first lessons in diversity and inclusion. And just, it doesn't matter what color you are or where you come from or what your disabilities or abilities are. We all have inherent value because we're human beings. And she taught us that. And she taught us that each of us, no matter where we came and where we started in life, we're built for something more. And if we could believe at a cellular level and embrace it, yes, it's not all rainbows and Skittles, but if we can have that mindset and be resilient, and do a few key things, can't promise success, but we can promise that we can get through the storms and that there's always a tomorrow. There's always hope. And she told us growing up, we're built for something more. Believe big.
Well, and you look at those challenges that you were facing, and then that gave you the opportunity to have a role model that could teach you so much, just in how she was living.
It was just the culture, basically. She set the tone of we are one big family, whether we're white or black, Hispanic, purple, or with pink polka dots. What Mom said. She doesn't care. She'll accept you. And drilled into us that we also accept others, irrespective of their differences, diversity, background, who they love, where they worship at all. She taught us to just embrace and honor life.
In that period, were there ever times that you got really discouraged or you thought this isn't going to work, we're not going to make it? And then how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I deal with that today and yesterday and probably will tomorrow.
So do I.
First, real big, tough time was kindergarten, developmental delay. And at the end of kindergarten, Mom tried to spin it and say, hey, we're going to do kindergarten again, which meant to a young kid like me, I failed, right? And when you start out failing the easiest class, it probably doesn't do a lot of good for your self-esteem. But it was one of those teachable moments where Mom pulled me aside and she's like, I can't guarantee you success. I can guarantee the likelihood for success will be that much greater if you follow my 2 rules of success. And so the 2 rules that Mom gave me when I flunked kindergarten in 5th grade or in 5, all my friends are going to 1st grade and I'm standing still, right? And as a young person, you feel that failure and that embarrassment that you're just not good enough. And all your friends and everybody, and it's always been like that. I've always had to work harder, study longer, and pay more attention and spend more time to get what most people that are, are blessed to be born without these, headwinds or on toes could do. And so,
and then having those, they take them for granted.
I mean, so I know now as a result of my experience that we take nothing for granted. Not any day I take for granted. And Mom said, if you can put together a plan, you can do anything you put your mind to. And what that means in 2021 is you got to have a plan. And real quickly, the 4 P's are you put together your playbook, your plan, know that pain is going to come. It's a part of the process. And patience is that 3rd principle. And patience isn't about waiting. It's what we do while we wait. And then the prize comes. And so understanding that there's going to be headwinds, there's going to be storms, but there's also a prize at the end of this if we can just do a few key things. And the other thing she said is to remember who I am and who I represent. And for me, that means I represent God and I represent faith. And I am an imperfect minister, trying to share God with whoever I will listen, but also I'm very mindful of the number of different religions and faith traditions out there. And so just been on a search to connect and to understand other people. And so those, I haven't always followed Mom's 2 keys to success, and I'll be honest with you, but when I have, even the difficult storms have been a lot better. But when I haven't, and even life's been ripping and running and good, it didn't have the same meaning. And so kind of how we started, and that's the challenges we faced early, and moms, dads, mentors, teachers didn't give up on me and just passed me through along the system. They worked with me.
And that's a story that comes with that pain, that patience, and there you have a prize of achievement.
Team effort to get people, and that was my experience. And there have been many challenges, many storms, long winter since, but
You bet.
the same principles get us through each of those storms.
You bet. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'd like to talk about moving from high school and then on to eventually your career, where you landed in the White House. So from struggles in kindergarten to working in the White House, we're going to come right back and talking with Lucas Boyce. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Looking to start or develop your business? Get educated. Get coached. Get financed. The National Entrepreneur Center. Be in business for yourself, not by yourself.
And we're back. You're listening to Everybody's Business, a podcast from the National Entrepreneur Center in Orlando, Florida. I'd like to say thank you to all of our sponsors, the sponsors of the National Entrepreneur Center, which allow us to make this happen, but also the sponsor of our podcast, which is State Farm Insurance. We couldn't do what we do without the generosity of our sponsors. Today, we're talking with Lucas Boyce. And Lucas, what an inspiring story that you've told. But we're only up to graduating from high school. And so I can't wait to talk to you about the stories you've shared about transitioning into the workplace at the White House and working at the White House. So how do you transition from what you were talking about to where you ended up?
So graduation day, right? Very, very blessed. Mom pulls me aside and she has a serious conversation with me. And she says, and I'll ask all of your listeners, and those are tuned in, the same thing that she asked me. She said, Lucas, what's next? What do you want to be? What do you want to accomplish? And how are you going to get there? And I thought about it, and I told my mom I had 4 dreams. I wanted to be able to be a missionary and share my faith of God and his son and what they've done for me in protecting me and covering me through very, very difficult storms. And I told her that, this random thing when I was 16, we went on a church youth trip to Washington, D.C., and we went to the Capitol. And that night we went to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm 16 years old, and I go up to the north lawn, the wrought iron fence. It's a lot taller fence now. And I can remember looking through the fence and saying, wow, this is during Clinton administration, right? And I was like, I'd love to be on the inside, right? And so I told my mom, I want to be a missionary and share my faith. I want to work at the White House. And then, of course, this movie, Air Force One, came out in 1997-98, right? Harrison Ford, Russians take over the plane.
Yes.
And he gets the plane back, right? And I remember with all my buddies and friends on the front row of the theater, the movie that came out, and of course, that the Air Force One that we know today came about as a result at the end of the Bush 41 administration. So Clinton was really the first one to use the modern Air Force One that we have in place today or in service. And so I said, I want to fly an Air Force One. And then I told her I wanted to work for the Chicago Bulls because we didn't have a team in Kansas City, Missouri, Independence, where we grew up. And Michael Jordan, again, getting through challenges and obstacles, he was one of those people I looked at, not just for his pure talent and incredible gifts, but because of him having a gift, being cut from a team, still going back, still applying, still trying out, and then building his skills. And then if you've ever watched The Last Dance on ESPN, of just wanting to be so competitive and win. But, LeBron James is just a force of nature, just 6'10". He could play any position on the floor. Michael Jordan's 6'6". Yeah, well, that's average height in the NBA. You see, he was literally, LeBron James could just go through you and dunk the ball, where Michael Jordan had to go around you. And so that taught me you have to be flexible, especially when you're not the big, strong guy. And I'm 5'6", 140 pounds wet on a good day.
So you're telling me you can't dunk?
You can't dunk. No. I used to get really excited when I could touch the net or the rim, though. So,
well, those are some pretty lofty goals. I want to work in the White House. I want to work for the Bulls.
And I knew that I was never going to probably be an NBA player, but I knew there was more than what you saw on the team. And that's what I told my mom on graduation day as an 18, 19-year-old. After high school, did a 9-month tour in Oaxaca, Mexico, where I had to learn the language of Spanish in order to share my faith and be a missionary, and spent 9 months there teaching Spanish to people, not just talking about faith, but just creating relationships. Hardest thing ever, especially when it's the first year you're out of school and you're away from your family, you're in a foreign country, you're black and everybody else is Hispanic, so you stick out a lot, and you can't communicate to even tell somebody how to cut your hair, right? So it's humbling. Again, the cycle of storms, and we use the same principles, though, of resilience, believing we're built for something more, the 4 Ps, to keep it going in that storm. And so came back, and then since I've been blessed to be in Israel and in Africa, Nigeria, a number of different places, both local, international, to share my faith. And of course, was one of the first internship classes right after 9/11. Didn't have any connections to any political party, and was just, again, God had me, and then was blessed one day randomly to be chosen to be a part of a photo opportunity on the South Lawn of the White House. It was March 25th of 2002. It was a Monday. Thought it was just a normal day. And I find myself being whisked over to the West Wing and onto the South Lawn, and they take off my suit coat and they put on this volunteer thing. And I was an intern, and then other than me, they brought out some kids, and the kids were 8, 10, and 12, and I'm 22. And I'm like, gosh, I know I look like I'm really young and I'm short, but surely not trying to pass me out for a photo op with a bunch of 12-year-olds, right? So, and then the president comes out, and at the time, former president, the 43rd president of our United States, George W. Bush, comes out for this photo opportunity with respect to volunteerism. And he didn't have a lot in common with them, so I came up and he went to everybody and he got to me, and I'd never met anybody real famous or of repute in my life except for Mom. And he's like, hey, I'm George. And I'm like, what up? I'm Lucas, right? And so we just kind of chopped it up on the South Lawn, taking these photos, asked me what I want to do, where I was working, different things. It was just a casual conversation. And it was casual because of his approach. You know, this is, at the time, was the most powerful person in the free world. And he's hanging out and just chit-chatting. And, after we had our official photo op with Parade Magazine, he calls me over and says, hey, let's get a personal photo. So as personal photographer, I broke protocol a little bit there. I pulled him in for the brother hug, right? Kind of leaned into that photo and kind of gave a smile, like, what the heck is this guy doing? But this was right after 9/11. This guy clearly has a lot in his mind. And I say, sir, I'm praying for you. The cause is just. And I think that's it. Just a cool day on the South Lawn. Didn't have Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, none of that stuff in 2002. So can only think of one person to update my status with. So call Mom on the, dial touch-tone phone and tell her about this great experience. And I think it's it. We'll go back home, finish the internship, finish college, political science degree, move on, be a lawyer. And I achieved my dream of being able to work at the White House until the next day. And my boss, Ed Moy at the time, who went on to be the 38th director of the U.S. Mint, pulled me aside after a meeting with the president. He was like, hey, I was just in a meeting in the Oval Office. And the president pulled me aside and said, hey, I met this guy in the South Lawn yesterday. He said he works for you. What's his name again? And he said, well, that's Lucas. I was like, well, I enjoyed meeting him. What's his story? And Ed proceeded to share with him some of the same things I've shared with you and your listeners today about my background and not knowing my political affiliation or anything else. What he said next was, well, what can we do for him? Let's bring him on board. Didn't care about my politics or anything. Just offered me an opportunity to serve, and not to serve him, but to serve the people of this country. And that was kind of the former president gave me my start.
You were doing the work, you were showing up, you were being diligent. And so sometimes, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And so, yes, you were there. And then that's number 2 box checked off. I've worked as a missionary, and now I've worked at the White House. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that third box.
Yeah. So transitioning to that next dream, so went on to finish college early, be on the ground floor of President Bush's reelection, transitioned to the White House, was in charge of African American outreach. I did a lot of things with healthcare. Well, my last job I had there was I was in charge of 10 states from Missouri all the way to California. So anytime the president went to one of those states, or first lady or senior administration official. I was in charge of everything from soup to nuts, and had lots of help and work with Secret Service, communications, and military, everybody that goes into a presidential event. It was wonderful. And again, there was that other dream, and in the administration, it's '08, there's going to be a new president. President Obama is then senator running for president, and my friend Kevin Sullivan, and he was in charge of communications. We were walking on the White House South Lawn back from an event, and he's like, "Got about a year left. Have you thought about what you want to do after the administration?" And I thought I'd give them their usual standard answers. Go get an N.B.A. or a law degree and get some more education so you can grow and do different things in your career. And something just popped in my mind, say, "Hey, tell them your dream." It's like, actually, I've always wanted to work for an N.B.A. team. And he's like, "Really? I used to work for the Dallas Mavericks." I had no clue. Right? So Kevin Sullivan's friend, my dear friend, Joe Glass, who's the current vice president of communications for the Orlando Magic, comes to his friend for help to get a West Wing tour on his vacation to DC. And Kevin called me, and it's a Monday night, and he's got to do something. I was like, "Hey, can you give this tour for me?" Yep. And that's where I got to meet Joel, and he gave me his card and asked for my card and asked for my resume. And somebody called me and he gave me an interview, and they said, "Thanks, but no thanks." And I was like, "All right, cool, that's cool." But then 8 months later, they called back. And you all know Linda Lemon Gonzalez here locally, who's in charge of corporate social responsibility for the Magic. But she is, other than my mom, Linda Lemon Gonzalez, I've learned more about diversity and inclusion than from any other person in life. And she's just wonderful. And she gave this pitch to the senior leadership of the Magic that she joined in '07, that we needed to focus beyond our season ticket holder base. We're a very diverse community, and it's got to be about diversity and inclusion. So they created a position, and that was my opportunity. And they called, and in about May of eight months later, after saying thanks but no thanks, not the right fit, and say, "Hey, we've created this position. Would you be interested?" And by July of that year, actually July 25th specifically, 2008, which is the groundbreaking of Amway Center, was my first day with the Magic, and was blessed to work with them for 8 years doing community relations, diversity and inclusion, government relations, serving on a number of different boards across the community, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Urban League, just a number of different roles.
And the Magic have been a great partner, not only for the Orlando community, but for the National Entrepreneur Center. They came on board to sponsor what we do. They help us, with our operating budget to reach out to small businesses. And they've been very inclusive in outreach to the community in a variety of ways. Before we go to break, I need to circle back to say that third goal was to ride on Air Force One.
Yes.
I heard a story you told about that. You want to share that?
Air Force One is just your regular, JetBlue or some kind of plane. A 747 jumbo jet Boeing that's been retrofitted with stuff that we can't talk about. But one of the coolest, I joke with people is like, have you ever seen that show on MTV called Pimp My Ride? Air Force One is about as pimp as you can get in this guy. We'll just leave it at that. So this 4-day trip, real quickly, we're going all these things, and of course, I'm taking myself way too seriously and trying to focus so hard because there's a lot of stuff that has to happen. And this is one of my learning lessons for all of us, not take yourself so seriously. So walk into the conference room when Air Force One, sit in the only chair that's available, start briefing my boss at the time, Barry Jackson, who took over for Carl Rowe, senior advisor. Here's what we're going to do the next day, because one of the stops was my home state of Missouri, Kansas City. All right, that was the last leg of the stop, and got to take the president to Kaleidoscope, which I went to as a kid in elementary school, and all kinds of fun things. Hallmark gave a speech on the economy, all these different things, right? So the night before, I'm saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, and this. We got it all planned. And then the room freezes. The president walks in, and everybody looks at the president, and then they look back at me. And then it's at that time I realized I'm sitting in the president's chair, and I'm about, he's 7 years in. The blood drains from my face. If you could see me turn white, you would have. And of course, nobody says a word. You should have told the rookie, hey, don't sit in that. The president gives me one of those what the heck looks. He's in year 7, right? And he's probably wondering, like, I know I'm the president for at least another 12 months. I know there's a guy that's running that's African American, but he's way taller than you, so you shouldn't be in that chair, right? So I'm just like, I apologize, sir. I didn't mean, nobody like, and I tried to get up, like, no, it's fine. He sits me down, I was like, I was just popping in, I'm not staying. He takes a look around, walks out, stops at the door, turns back, looks at me again with this like, what the heck? And I'm like, I'm sorry, sir. I apologize. Like, it's fine. It's cool. It's just the president's chair. He starts laughing. All his senior leaders start laughing, and he goes up to his cabin on the plane, and I get up and go back to my chair in the junior staff cabin, right? So embarrassed, oops on the first big trip, and then the next day we're at this last event of the entire trip, which is a campaign fundraiser at this house, and my mom and dad, who could never afford to go any of these things, I invited them, and so they were there in line, and of course taking myself way too seriously. I find them, I give them, haven't seen them in a while, give mom a good kiss and dad a good hug. Your tie straight, dad. Lipstick's good, mom. Don't embarrass me, right? So taking myself way too seriously. And the White House staff, who knows the story that I've shared with you and your listeners, pushed me back in line and say, introduce your mom and dad as the president. And of course, I straighten up my tie and get all serious, and I'm like, Mr. President, this is my mom and dad, Dorothy and Larry, and he gets a big old smile on his face. It might have been the first time he realized that I was a different color than mom and dad, but I don't know. But he puts his arm around my mom, and he's like, man, you've done a good job with raising your son. And that's good for somebody that had raised so many children and raised diverse children, black and white and disabilities, and people told her not to do that. And why would you do that? And for her to hear you're doing a good job for me is okay, but to hear it from a president, it means a lot to her as a person who gets money from the quarterback all the time. So she puts her arm around my mom, and then he looks at me and is like, your son, he's done these things. This is his first big trip. He's talking about all the different places we've done. And then he looks at me and he gives me a wink. And then he looks at my mom and is like, the only thing about your son is he likes to sit in my chair on Air Force One, right? So the president rats me out, right? And I'm embarrassed again.
In front of your mom and dad.
Shrink, and disappear like I want too often anyway. And, of course, he's smiling and it's a joke. But how he handled that is instructive for how we can operate when there's not rainbows and Skittles every day.
That's practicing patience, but it also builds a relationship. And so that's a relationship that you have and a story that you can tell, that you can revisit, that says, that's how I can learn to do that. And I'll emulate a good role model.
Yeah, and be willing to be flexible. And it's taught me a lot of things, actually.
Sure. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back talking with Lucas Boyce, so don't go away. Hi, this is Jerry Ross coming to you from the National Entrepreneur Center. I'm coming to you from my home office because our staff as well is working remotely. But we're working remotely to serve the small businesses in Central Florida. If you have a need, if you want to get connected, there are many ways to do that with the National Entrepreneur Center. So we are still answering your calls. We are still answering your email. In fact, we've been pretty busy these last few months, even working remotely to launch the new online learning platform in partnership with the Lonely Entrepreneur out of New York City, who had about 300 learning modules of content readily available. And we've made a partnership to make that available to you for free while you're working remote. So while you may be home working alone, you don't have to be alone, because the National Entrepreneur Center and our 14 resident organizations have one mission, and that's to help you grow your business. We're back, and you're listening to Everybody's Business, a podcast from the National Entrepreneur Center. We're talking today with Lucas Boyce. And Lucas, every time I'm near you or I talk to you, I get inspired. You have such a great way of presenting a perspective that gives you hope and makes you want to do more. So I appreciate everything that you've shared with us so far. Tell us what you're doing now.
Yes, sir. So I am blessed to work for the 1.4 roughly million residents of Orange County and all of our guests when we are able to have as many of them as possible. Blessed to work for Mayor Jerry L. Demings and County Administrator Byron Brooks. This job was literally, I was in town for a speech in November of 2018, and the mayor was still sheriff, about to assume the role of Orange County mayor. And I asked him, I was like, if there's room on your team, I'd love to come back to Florida. I was in Missouri at the time as a substitute teacher, and and he called, and Roseanne, his chief of staff, so gracious, called and got me connected to Byron, and I am the assistant to the county administrator, and that means I do whatever they ask me to do. And that could be a letter, that could be organizing an event, that could be scripting a video, or drafting talking points, or planning a strategic thing. And just as a utility player, team player, sometimes we'll do projects for the mayor, and sometimes we'll do most of our stuff for the county. But there's about 7,500 employees at the county, all working very diligently every single day to ensure that the residents of our county are served in the best way possible.
You're wearing a lot of hats, but that comes from a lot of experience that you've had in different organizations, and applying all of those different areas that you worked now is perfect for the role that you're doing here at Orange County.
It's all hands on deck, and we're all doing things that weren't necessarily in our job descriptions, but there's an unprecedented time, and so we're all doing the best we can to serve the residents as fast and as efficiently as we can.
And you've been doing a great job. I recently connected with you as part of the Mayor Deming's task force on reopening businesses around the county, and you were very helpful in connecting us and keeping us informed on that. I've worked with Mayor Deming since the time he was sheriff, and he has been one of those leaders that you can look at and say, that's where I want to go, and he has built that kind of community here, which is, first of all, with the pandemic and that's gone on, unprecedented, but also at a time where, social justice has become one of those things on the forefront of people's minds, and with what's happening in our country, to how do we deal with that? So can you talk to a couple of those, one about the pandemic and the shutdown, but also about the social justice movement?
So maybe start with social justice, and of course, we all witnessed what happened over the summer, and it was shock and horror and awe as a successive amount, a series of just tragic encounters with law enforcement. And I'll be candid with you, I haven't always had the best relationship with law enforcement, and sometimes I'm scared of them. But we also know there's a lot of awesome ones out there that really do believe in serving and protecting, right? And
right.
So it's like in any profession, you're gonna have good lawyers and bad lawyers, good doctors, and so, but the bad apples always get all the attention and the shine. And so I have to believe that the majority of all of law enforcement, or any first responders, that they understand that they have a duty to do no harm and to serve and protect. And that is what drives their mission and gets them up every single day.
I agree.
The ones that will rush into the fire or rush into the fight to stop it, we don't think about that. They have that. That's a special gift of somebody that is willing to be mindful of the needs of others. And I know that as we move forward in time, each law enforcement agency, in conjunction with our state and local and even federal lawmakers, have an opportunity to reform, restore, and transform how we serve and protect our communities. And that's the opportunity coming out of the horrible things that we saw and witnessed this summer. We have a number of employee resource groups. We want to empower them, but we also want to be real smart about not letting the moment just pass, and we do a little Band-Aid type of program. We want to be comprehensive and robust and detailed in how we can create a culture where we all care about each other regardless of our diversity or our differences.
Well, and I have that feeling too, that to say, we've had these conversations at various times, but how do we make this time result in action that has a measurable difference? A few months ago, we had our resource partners here. We have 14 nonprofit organizations that make up our National Entrepreneur Center, and they came together to say, what can we do to further the conversation into actionable items? And so we had an event called Community Conversations, and we brought in the Center for Peace and Justice to talk about the definitions, because a lot of times people confuse the definitions, and the follow-up to that series is going to be what steps can people take? What steps can a small business take to implement some of those things that we've been talking about and that we all recognize need to be changed? So I appreciate what you're doing and also what the county is doing to help make Central Florida, a beacon of place where diversity, equity, and inclusion lives.
Yes, and then that's your leaders are doing just that. Housing for all, their thoughts. It doesn't matter who you are in this community. The leaders and the public servants of Orange County government care. They just care about everyone.
Well, I get that feeling as well.
In COVID, you've seen it. I've seen it. That task force, the Economic Recovery Task Force. So as we're going through the storm, Mayor Demings is already thinking about, as we come out of this storm, how do we come out better, stronger, right? And I was blessed to be able to be a logistics coordinator but Roseanne Harrington, the chief of staff, Carol Burkett, the deputy chief of staff, the mayor's special assistants, I have created a number of different task forces, and they are responding to the needs that they see and feel in the community, right? And so 60 some odd leaders from across the community, from every industry, from the parks to the hospitals, to the sports teams, to the nonprofits, to our partners on iDrive and a number of places came together over the course of a very compressed period of time from about April through July. We had just several meetings and subcommittee meetings about how we imagine and envision when we come out of this storm and out of this pandemic, how can we come back in a better way and get advice, and so that was a wonderful team effort that included just so many different people, from our IT team to the technology to the Orange TV and the number of staff from all these different departments that came together as staff leads to compile the thoughts and the insight and the knowledge and the wisdom from community leaders to then provide guidelines on how we all go back to work. But we ran into this thing as, here are the rules to be able to go back to work and get back in the swing of things. But gosh, I've been out of work and my business has been shuttered for 2 months. I don't have capital like that. And so, of course, we looked at that. And of course, the mayor and the team came up with a plan to purchase and distribute free PPE, personal protective equipment. That's masks, that's hand sanitizer, to not just small businesses that need to get back up and running, but to faith-based organizations and to individuals. And free testing sites. We've just done everything we can to make sure that during this incredibly difficult storm and this incredible hard winter, if you will, for our residents, we're doing everything we can to assuage and to ameliorate or to find comfort and bring comfort to their life.
And so that's living out what you talk about, and we were talking about the inclusive community. So many people, myself included, were on the task force. They were included for input from the community. And then, you talk about small businesses dealing with the cost, the unexpected cost of PPE equipment. That's economic, but the bigger overriding principle was it was a community that cared. Orange County cared about those businesses and said, here's equipment, here's resources. And then they went into the grant program, which we participated in the application reviews, where they put almost $60 million in grants into the community for small business. And so, lots of people have the discussion about how we help small businesses, and we love small businesses. And yet we saw a perfect example here of action that a government agency took to lead a community in caring for its residents, but also its businesses. Wherever you are listening to this podcast, wherever you are listening here, you can get resources locally. Business help from SCORE, from a small business development chapter, from any local area will have one of those that are funded by the federal government. So you don't have to do this alone. Connect with your local small business development center, connect with your local SCORE chapter, because help is out there. And then connect with your community, because it's the growth and the strength of the small business community that will build strong communities over time. So we'll be right back, and we'll be talking with Lucas Boyce.
The National Entrepreneur Center has made it easy for you to learn business principles from anywhere at any time with NEC Online. As a supplement to all the great resources at the National Entrepreneur Center, you now have free access to over 300 learning modules that you can access at any time. Thanks to the generous sponsorship of Wells Fargo and our partnership with The Lonely Entrepreneur, you can access this powerful online learning platform for free. Learn on your own time and at your own pace. Access product reviews and participate in weekly group coaching opportunities. Right now, the only thing missing is you. So check out our online learning platform today at nationalec.org. That's nationalec.org. Did I mention it's free?
We're back with Everybody's Business, a podcast from the National Entrepreneur Center. We're talking with Lucas Boyce, who is the author of Living Proof, this book that I've read, very inspiring. You need to check it out. He is an author. He is a speaker, but he's also a great human being that is a servant leader. Let me ask you a couple of questions on business, and then we'll jump to more personal stuff. Lucas, what is your outlook for the economy in 2021 or small business? Is this a good time to be starting a business? Is this a terrible time to start a business? What do you think?
No matter what the season, and our economy goes through different cycles and seasons, I think successful entrepreneurs and or small business women or people or men, if you can find a need in the market that you're targeting, that nobody else is providing that need, that's a market driving strategy. If you can meet the unmet need, you think about these little devices, if you will. We didn't know we needed these, or iPods, and now we have a literal computer that does not just calling, but texting and all these apps and all these different things. We didn't know we needed something that could organize and make our lives more convenient. But somebody thought about, what if we could put all of this together into one product? Wow, I think people might respond to that. And so regardless of whether we're in COVID or economic downturn, those things will happen as cycles as the market corrects itself and does different things over the course of time. Again, over the course of time, the stock market goes like this, but you hope that it's a trend line like this. And that's my outlook. Yeah, we're going like this right now. The cases are rising here in Central Florida and across the country, right? And we're thankful for the vaccines and trying to deploy them in a responsible and efficient manner very quickly. But there'll be ups and downs. But that doesn't mean we'll always be down. And we can always, and will always, as a community, bounce back. Yeah, the economic hit to our tourist development taxes, to our lifeblood of some of our most VIP citizens, and those are our workforce housing. Those are the characters at Disney. Those are the people that are taking 3 buses in 4 hours to get to work, to be to work at our parks or work in this community that isn't happening right now. And so there's a real need for us to focus on those individuals, and that's kind of what we've been trying to do for small businesses. And so for those people that are stuck and they don't have that anymore because of this, what's the unmet need? If you can find something that people need and meet it, that's a strategy for driving a market. And to be a giver. I don't know if you've ever heard the book Go Giver, but if you're in sales and you're an entrepreneur, it's an awesome book to get because it makes sales not about you, but the value you can provide for somebody else.
Right, because I tell entrepreneurs sometimes, people really don't care about what you do. They care about what you do for them. And so, when you've got a product, and a lot of times we list all of the things that we do, but we don't make the transition of what that means to the client. So I say, if someone's hungry and I give them a hammer, I may feel great about that, but I didn't help them. And it's the same thing in business. You've got to say, what is it that there's a need out there for? And then how am I going to meet that? How am I going to meet that in a way that I can make a profit and stay in business? But you're right. We're a tourist destination. We get 70 million visitors a year. And for the last year, they've been struggling. And so until people return to travel, it is going to be a difficult time here in Orlando. So it may be the time to look at starting your own business. And the first place to start is the National Entrepreneur Center. So let me ask you a few closing questions about you personally. What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night is the number of people that have died from this disease. My parents, my mom's 75, my dad's 84, and they both had corona. It's real when it's somebody that is close, and moms, they've gone through it for 2 months. It's been all these underlying conditions. Those things are real. It's been a 2-month battle for them. They're finally out of the woods a little bit, but all of the people that have lost their lives, but the people that have borne the stress and the sadness and the grief of those lives keeps
You
me
bet.
up. People that are poor. We drive throughout Central Florida every day, and we see people on every street corner. We have tents underneath bridges. The mayor has a Housing for All task force that's focused on trying to provide more affordable housing so people don't go through that situation, but that people don't have any food, that they don't have a place to stay, are the things that keep me up at night. And if I had a magic wand, and one of your questions here is if money were no option and you could do it, I would make sure that there was nobody ever that didn't have enough food, that didn't have a place to stay, and that felt loved and welcome and valued. If I had all the money in the world, I would adopt every foster care child or everybody that needs a home. And those types of things keep me up at night. I'm blessed to be on an advocacy committee with United Against Poverty in Orlando, here, up Orlando, in relationship with the Second Harvest Food Bank. And so those were my focus is on the least of these are children, especially those that don't have a mom or a dad to love them. Those that struggle with homelessness and poverty, don't have enough money. I think our homeless people are some of the courageous people in the world. To be able to humble yourself enough to be out there in the Florida sun, and especially in the summers when it rains, to be out there at traffic lights, going from car to car, asking for people to help. The humility that takes and the courage that takes is, I don't think we're always focused on maybe something else because we've got to go and we're in our car. But there's one guy, like, I only had 25 cents. And I was like, I only have 25 cents and I'm so sorry. And he's like, you're the first car in 200 to stop and even give me anything. And he's the person that keeps me up at night.
I can see that. So let me end with a few questions just about you and lighten things up here a bit. What's your favorite color?
Favorite color is purple.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie, Air Force One. The Hitman's Bodyguard is a really good one. Recently that I watched, that was fun. Yeah.
Are you a coffee or a tea drinker?
Don't really do coffee or tea. Sometimes I'll do maybe like cherry Coke or something like that. But if it is coffee, it's got to be real sugary.
Yeah. What's your favorite dinner?
My favorite dinner is probably just like a cheeseburger from McDonald's, but like a fancy night. We got Ruth's Chris for special occasions when we save up our money enough. And,
Sure.
Or, of course, one of the best steaks in Orlando is, what's that on Lee Road? Great steakhouse there. I can't remember at the time, but.
Charlie's?
Charlie's Steakhouse there is. Yeah, that's a good one too.
So, who's your favorite cartoon character?
Calvin and Hobbes. I used to read those growing up.
Are you a chocolate person or do you prefer potato chips?
Chocolate and potato chips. Not at the same time, though.
Okay. So what do you do when you're not working, Lucas?
In good times, when we weren't in COVID, I'm a big music guy and I love music. And when I'm not working, I like to read. I'm a big continuous improvement guy. So always trying to get better, trying to add value to the nonprofits. Basketball is a huge stress reliever and coping mechanism for me. Unfortunately, because of COVID, all the gyms have been closed, and even the outdoor, they've taken down the rims and the nets because, it's a contact sport and people could transmit the virus. And so I had my trash can out last night. I was playing basketball with that because that helps relax me. But on a good day, in a good year, when we don't have COVID, I'm at the gym from 6 to 8 when nobody's there. Just have my earphones on, rocking out the music, and just shooting baskets.
Well, and if you're using the trash can as your basket, you could dunk.
Yeah, that's true. I am taller than a trash can. Thank you.
Would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert, but have to, as a result of life, be an extrovert, which is really hard sometimes.
It is, and that's a learned skill. So if somebody is interested in having Lucas Boyce come out and speak to their group or getting a hold of one of your books, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. So my email address is LDB, L as in Lucas, D as in Deborah B as in boy at lucasdanielboyce.com. That's my email address. And get the book on Amazon.com. If you want to hear previous speeches, those are on YouTube. I direct you to my website, but one of my frenemies over the course of the last month have deleted and taken down my website, got hacked. So we're redoing the website and in that process of getting that back up. So in the meantime, just email me at my personal address. I believe in responding to people as soon as possible. So ldb@lucasdanielboyce.com. If you want to get the book, you can, but it's not about the book and not about the money. It's about what can happen when we're willing to believe in each other and help each other.
And that's a message that works for everybody anywhere who's listening to this podcast. We appreciate your time, Lucas. We appreciate you sharing your journey and your wisdom. We'll be right back.
If you have a business question that you would like to have answered, or if you would like to suggest a topic for discussion, we would love to hear from you. Just email Jerry at hello@nationalec.org. That is hello@nationalec.org.
And we're back with some final thoughts on our conversation with Lucas Boyce. Have you ever met Lucas before?
No, I haven't. I want to now.
Well, I understand that you bought his book while you were listening to us.
Yes, I went. I apologize for multitasking, but I went and bought it through Kindle, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna read that tonight.
Every time I interact with him, I always get inspired. I mean, not only his story, but his perspective on things and how to move forward. He does exemplify the servant leader. That you aspire to be, and so especially there are so many good stories like that. And so I'm really happy that we were able to connect with his schedule, especially during Black History Month.
Oh, yes. I mean, just listening to him and just everything that he's overcome personally. And now he's trying to, through his same struggles, he understands that other people experience that too.
Sure.
So, I mean, he's trying to serve the community in any way he can to help those that also are going through tough times.
Right. And so, and when you overcome those kind of challenges now, to be in a position where you can help is really powerful. And so he's got a powerful story. I also wrote down his 4 Ps, the plan, that there's going to be pain. You got to have patience. But then there's a prize at the end.
Right.
And so, if you remember that, you can make it through the pain. And sometimes, especially with what we've been through with COVID, we've all learned a little bit about our capacity for patience.
Oh, yes. I mean, look at him now. I mean, he had those goals. And he obviously had the patience and he made it.
Yes.
So it was a really good story to listen to.
Well, and to lay those out, graduation day, and then, check them off. It proves that you can accomplish what you need to when you have a plan and you're willing to be patient and work toward that. So as any entrepreneur will know, it's going to be painful at times. You're going to need patience, but there's a prize at the end. And that may be anything from helping your employees, helping your customers,
right?
And then ultimately being able to do what you want to do as a business owner. So always inspiring to listen to Lucas Boyce.
Yeah, I have a new perspective, that's for sure.
That's right. And we're always inspired by you listening to us today. It really gives us a reason to come in here to know that we are sharing information and perspective from people from all over the country that can provide you with a business tip or a nugget somehow to help you in your day as a business owner or an entrepreneur. So we're glad you're listening, and we're thankful for you as well. If you have a question that you would like us to answer, you can email us at hello@nationalec.org, and we just might answer that question on the air. So have a great week, and we'll look for you next time.